Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Ancestral Energy channel. We are focusing on holistic health, which encompasses physical, mental, emotional, energetic, and spiritual health. And today we have a guest, happiness and fulfillment coach, Etelka Szeghalmi. Could you please briefly introduce yourself?
It's always hard to introduce myself briefly, but first and foremost, I'm glad to be here. I am a martial artist more or less for more than 20 years now. So that's how I got involved into Qigong and then metaphysics. Started to work with people because I'm obsessed with human potential. And I think human potential and happiness has a very, very close connection. So that's why I became a happiness and fulfillment coach, because or a mentor, that's what helps people the most to realize their full potential, that gives them the most opportunity to be who they are and to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Spontaneous question. So, do you think happiness is a prerequisite to self-actualize to the highest potential, or sometimes people, let's say, realize that through challenges, and maybe when they are not so happy about their life? What's your opinion on that?
I think it's the other way around. I actually have never seen someone unhappy who has realized their full potential, because it's not possible. Of
Mhm.
course, there are always challenges. There are some different levels of things. And because there is expansion on a universal level, it means that there must be an expansion on a personal level. And I think the dragon year is just showing that exactly.
Yeah, so actually today's general topic is what challenges does the Greenwood Dragon bring, and this is the initial question. So what do you think? It's already April. It's end of the April, so people probably started to feel this heat picking up and this intensity of this month. So uh, how do you think the Greenwood Dragon is impacting humanity?
Well, I think there are a lot of things onto each other, affecting each other, having this specific effect. It's only partially the green dragon, partially is about the cycles we were talking about last time. But the important part is to understand what this means personally to you, because it has, of course, a more broader perspective on what it means to the world itself, but it has a very personal level. And since this is a year when, how to put this one politely, our deadline has come close, so we don't have time to procrastinate the things, even the things we've been procrastinating for years or even for a lifetime. And this could be the first and biggest challenge of this time, that imagine that there is something you were running from years or even from your whole life, and now you cannot run from it anymore. It's up in your life, it's up in your face that this is something you should deal. But this is not like a big bad thing. It's harder to really get into the mindset that, okay, what do I do with it if I stop running?
Mm. Yeah, and so what is the personal choice? I think it also comes to choice. So and that becomes probably very, how would you say, if this year we are feeling it, those things that, for example, people have been procrastinating or they used to push or ignore, now it's not the same. Now it's like right in front of you. And so what could that be causing for people? Maybe because maybe somebody doesn't fully understand what's going on, they just feel lots of this dragon fire, dragon heat. But how would you explain it in other words?
I think there are always two things to consider. The challenges are mainly and mostly for most people are about weaknesses. And by weakness, I mean the things we are doing and we know that they are not good for us. We know that they are kind of self-destructive, But I have to tell in front that I don't believe in bad habits.
Mhm.
The reason for that is that we have a very, very, very good reason to do those bad habits.
Mhm.
Because we are gaining something. We are gaining something really important out of them. And the understanding comes here. If you break down a bad habit and check what is exactly what you are gaining out of it, then you understand why there is addiction to that habit, why you cannot stop that habit. It's not because you are weak, it's not because you lack self-discipline and all those kind of bullshits actually which
Mhm.
people are saying, because that only comes in when you understand what you gain from that bad habit, and then take that thing and find a healthy way, find a harmonic way to pull that into your life consciously. And then the addiction will stop and you will have the free will, and then the discipline and all these things come in to stop that bad habit. But up until the point you don't bring in the healthy version of that thing into your life, you have no choice. There is no choice to be made. There is no discipline to apply.
I think that's a wonderful description of like really deconstructing the habit. So what's inside of it, and maybe there's some kind of resistance to something, or as you said, like a person is trying to gain something from that. But in general, how you explain it, it seems like a yin yang. So you have to see what are the both sides of that habit. And if we look into habits as coping mechanisms, I understood you meant it can be either healthy or unhealthy. So what do you think are some maybe some simple examples what people could understand the coping mechanisms, and maybe to compare a bad and good habit on the same thing?
um Procrastination, I think that's one of the habits
Hmm.
most of the people have.
Hmm.
It is considered to be a bad habit, but if you check what motivates this procrastination exactly, what's behind it, and it can be several reasons. It's the same thing, and five people can do it for five different reasons why they are procrastinating.
Hmm.
One of the things could be fear, of course. And you can fear a lot of things. Let's take one example again. You fear that if you don't procrastinate that thing, that if you start doing it, that might change your life. And you might start to lose people, for example. And you won't take that risk to lose important people in your life. So you will start procrastinating, and you will never stop really procrastinating, because that means that then you'll have that.
There's almost this like fear of unknown, or can, because they don't know what's gonna be next, or also for some people can be fear of success, because some people like already smell it, that if they would make a certain decision or certain actions, they would get successful. But then there is like lack of familiarity with that maybe feeling for.
Well, I don't really believe in fear of success. You know why? Because it's not the success you are fearing. The fear comes from what you associate with success.
Mhm.
Maybe you associate that people who are successful are very egotistical. People who are successful don't think about other people. They are not empathic. So they will remain alone. So
Mhm.
it's not fear of success, it's fear of being alone, fear of losing connection,
Mhm.
fear of all the other things. It's not the success itself you fear.
Or so, yeah, for somebody could be responsibility, because if they think that all successful people are taking much more responsibility for life, but that may not necessarily
But
be
why?
the case.
Let me take one notch, this one
Yeah.
too. Why you fear responsibility? It's not the responsibility you fear. You fear that if you take that responsibility, then everything will be your fault. It's not
Hmm.
the responsibility itself.
Hmm.
It's the thought, it's the association. And that's exactly the way of how you should think when you meet something around this time of the year of the dragon. When you meet these challenges, there is something on the surface which is good, but we want to go deeper to understand what moves this whole thing. What are the roots of the thing?
Yeah. To come back a little bit to the procrastination example, I would like also to share my own experience with that very briefly. So April for myself, I consider a very productive, effective month. I had a lot of projects going on, but they were prioritized to like kind of tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, based on importance. And so in the number 1 tier, I put like making a course, which I'm very passionate about the topic, and I know a lot. This is a gut health, gut microbiome, and I did all the tier 2, tier 3, also important tasks, and it brought me like very good fruits of the labor for April. But the most important thing, I didn't end up doing it, and for me it was lack of clarity, because this was like make a course. I didn't broke it down to very small actionable steps that I could act every day, and then it was like, okay, how just make a course. It was like this dragon coming and just like giving that sense of energy. So it gave me a good lesson, and yeah, it taught me what actually is procrastination, let's say more in my example. And as you mentioned, everybody can have like different manifestations of the same thing. So would you say, Etushka, like, is there a general trend how the greenwood dragon manifests, or it's very different for everybody, or there are certain topics how what it exposes this year?
Both. It has a very personal impact, because the things which are coming up have a very strong connection to what you've been running from. What are the things you've been procrastinating for years now? And they are in connection with your deepest truth, with who you are, with your responsibility for yourself, not from others, for yourself specifically. If you are living that potential, if you are manifesting through that potential, if your life is a mirror of who you are or not. And those discrepancies could cause the challenges, because you see, maybe your work is not what is aligned with your values, or maybe you would like to do projects beside your work because you need, for example, financial stability, so you would continue on your work, but start on projects which are in more alignment with who you are and what you want to do. So it's not black and white in that sense. However, it's still true that there are a few highlights or streamlines which it's good to be aware of. And one of those are, I think, is that the dragon will not help you start something. It will not help you step into something. But as soon as you did use your free will, you did step in, it will back you up instantaneously, which will cause you to think about things in a different way. So now it's very hard to say from a situation or for a person or for something outside of it what's going on, because you will see a very different view when you step in the situation. When you step in the shoe of the other person, you will see different things and different opportunities will open up, which you won't be able to see from outside. So in that sense, dragon is asking a proactivity from you to do your work first, and then you receive nurture and support in all the other things.
Yeah, so I like the expression that dragon is a very proactive and a practical animal, practical energy, I would even say. And it doesn't have this. Let's compare two approaches. It doesn't have this like long-term preparation analysis. Dragon goes and learns through the process of doing it. Yeah, is that the dragon energy? How would you explain?
In a way, but yeah, you need some certain preparation, but it's significantly less that you would think it needs. Because sometimes you just don't manifest, don't create, because you are stuck in your head in planning level. And the dragon says planning is great, but where is the action? And you've planned so many things in your life so far, and everybody had. We had some different plans. Even if you don't consider them plans, you still did it. You had dreams when you were little of what you would like to be, and all these kind of things are just as valid as the dreams and goals you have now. So you can just reach back onto those things to have some ideas on that.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other domains that the Greenwood Dragon brings to awareness on a higher level than anything else?
Yes, and I think the other important streak of the dragon and the cycle change at the same time is that you don't start something brand new. You raise the level of the things you already have. You take it to the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
And this means to change its form, but preserves the value. Preserve the content and change the form, change the outer manifestation of those things. And if you think about this in your life, what are the things which are already in a stage that, okay, you've done what you could, and now you need to step up your game.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do the same thing, but in a drastically different way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the new cycle. And if you are thinking about the 5 elements, that would mean that you gone through the 5 elements. You had wood, you've learned, you had fire, you experienced, you had earth, you had the system, you understood all those things, and then you had the critical knowledge to know what's going to deepen all these things into something more significant, that have the intuition. And now we are in the step moving from the intuition to creation again, and bringing from water to wood to a different reality, to a different level, to start the cycle again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's a challenge and also an opportunity of the green dragon. So what are the things in your life that needs to be stepped up? And it could be various things. It could be the way you are in your relationships. It could be in your work. It could be your spiritual life. It could be anything.
Mm-hmm. And typical, most of those things, well, as you said, like come up and show up. What
Exactly.
needs to,
You don't
what
have to
needs
it's there.
what needs to be like elevated. So this is very, very interesting, because for me it also came intuitively. Like some other businesses I'm just optimizing right now, and that is like a huge step forward for me. And it really, it's very interesting to just hear from you, and just immediately think on what's been intuitively happening in my life. So I feel probably the listeners are also like, oh, this is this is very interesting. So um is there anything in regards to, last time we talked about also the fire cycle, that in general we entered the fire cycle, and it also brings certain, yeah, like almost destruction of the old, and this new thing, which sounds like the dragon is by itself bringing with that. So how would you connect it with the new fire cycle?
Um, the fire cycle is about a 20-year period.
Mm-hmm.
And this wood dragon starts a 10-year period. So whatever we are doing this year is a long-term thing. It's a long-term planning. So if you are thinking about, okay, what would I like to do in 10 years? What would I like to do in 20? That's a lot of time. And most people do not plan in that long term, because we say, okay, there are a lot of things in life which are not really going in a direction, and all these kind of things. We feel that everything is so out of our control that we don't dare to plan. But that's not the good way to start a 20-year cycle. We need to plan in a more flexible way. Maybe a better question would be that, who do you want to be in 20 years? Because that one, for sure, you can plan. Maybe you don't know where you will be. Maybe you don't know what you would do. But who you will be, that you must know, because that's totally and utterly under your control.
Yeah, and that probably is about specific qualities that you can consciously choose to embody, and then with those qualities, you can also choose the specific habits that maybe help to cultivate those things. So I really pointed out, as you said, it's 100% responsibility, and it's a choice who we want to become. But this long-term planning is a surprise, to be honest, because I think planning for 10, 20 years is unfamiliar to many people, and but seems that the dragon is bringing that, whatever the topics may be. So I think listeners, that might be a good question for like deeper reflection, and perhaps a short meditation, maybe a long meditation, maybe consecutive meditations to think, because most likely that's also going to have a long-term impact. You said something about that this year it's going to create the upcoming cycle of many years forward. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, because this is the official starting point of the 10-year cycle, and also the 20-year cycle. So it is a very transformative year. So whatever you start, what energies you are manifesting in this year will continue in the next 10, 20 years. So if you think about how you would like to feel, and that's another version of it, how you would like to feel in the next 10, 20 years, that could be also a good guideline. One tip here, though, I think for most people, I agree, it's very hard to plan on 10, 20 years area, because that's a period which is too broad for our mind to grasp really in a very specific way. So when you start to plan, you don't have to have the first planning right. Planning flexible means that I adapt, I iterate my planning, because maybe I feel when I start, of course, I need to start somewhere. So I will start whatever comes up, of course. How else would you start? Or maybe what I often do when I'm on an unknown, uncharted territory, I look at how others do it. Because if I don't know how to do it, maybe others who've been doing this for years have some good insights for me. So I check what others are planning for these 10, 20 years. You could do that. And then see that, okay, this is something I would be interested in, or this is a good direction, but not in this way. And then start to work with that. So you do not have to do it all alone. Again, you can ask someone who is good in planning to help you with that, and just ask 3 good questions, because that will usually start your thinking process. Oh, I have never thought about asking myself these questions. So it could go a lot of way, but the important part is to start it. And I know that you won't feel ready, but start it anyway.
And that's the importance, to start asking those questions. So now this is also a very an interesting question. If you think, if let's say take 3 examples, there is a planner type of person in this Greenwood Dragon year as a context, and now 3 different types of people: the planner, or the strategist, analyst that plans a lot. Then we have the action, which is like everything is action, action, action. And then the third one is like, just observe and be adaptable. Whatever comes, let's just adapt to everything and see how we flow. Which person do you think, and which of these qualities are the most favorable for this year and this new cycle?
I think you need all 3. But not in equal manner. So you need a good planning in that sense that you need a direction. You need to know where you're headed. Otherwise, how would you know when you're there? So you need some planning, and the planning cannot come into reality without action. So you can have the best planning ever if you do not do anything about it. But life happens. And if you are not able to adapt your planning according to life, then again, you will be lost at some point, because you will try to force something which is rigid, which is not working anymore with the circumstances or the possibilities or the resources you have, because you have not adapted. So that's how all these three in some manner will encompass what you would need. And naturally, every one of us has one or two which are going great and one which is, well, let's say not going so great, room to improve. And we need to be able to invest some time and effort in the one which is not working very well. So for someone who is a big planner with no action, then they need to go out and learn how to action. What are the strategies to action things? And on the other hand, the one who is always about action and always about doing things, never stop to think, to plan, they need to stop and learn how to plan, how to choose the right direction for them specifically. And that's how we need to look at all those things. So I'm sitting now, so I see, okay, I'm good at planning and I'm good at actioning. Let's say I'm not good at adapting my planning because I planned it once, so it has to be that way because I planned it already.
Yeah.
So and again, then I have to learn how to go with the flow, how to be in the present moment, how to adapt my planning, my ideas with all those things.
Yeah, so it is like almost, for me, the analogy would be, it is like a yin yang. There's that action part, then there's that planning part, and this adaptability is like the middle way of yin yang, and you need all of them to function properly. And so, about the topic of adaptability, there is this beautiful quote that the ultimate law of nature is change. So I wanted to ask, do you agree with that? And if yes, then how can people practice adaptability, and why is it important?
I think, of course, I agree with that, because the only thing which you can take it for sure is that there will be a change. So nothing lasts forever, not the good things, but not the bad. And in that sense, this is very reassuring because it will change eventually. The problem is caused by us people trying to fix things in the way that freeze things in certain states. But whenever you try to fix things, to freeze things, this means that you are stopping the flow and you are making it dead. It could be the best relationship, it could be the best system. As soon as you try to fix it and freeze it, it will die. So what needs to be considered on a personal level is how you are with change. Some people say that they are good with change. But then, of course, I'm asking a challenging question. Are you good with change what you are not controlling? Because most of these people are good with change as long as the change is not too big or as long as they are in control of the change. But life happens, we all know. So it's not the question of control, not the question of extending my control to have a bigger control of life and all this kind of thing, because that's a lot of effort. Really, and it's constant resources to try to keep tabs on everything to go into the right direction. Why not let something which is better in control, like the universe, like Tao, do its job?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
And we chip in, of course, with our part, with our responsibility. Of course, we have a part in it. It's not out of us. It's both. We have our part and our responsibility, and whatever is not in this area, not within our responsibility, we'll let it go. We will give it to the tower that do whatever it needs to be done.
Yeah, and sometimes I think Stoics would agree very much. There's in this, like, Epictetus, I think, said that shed everything that's lies beyond your control and take full responsibility what you are in control of. But then also, I think sometimes change is also not like that. So it's not like, as you said, you cannot control it, and then you have to observe. But it also sometimes takes time. So if somebody is experiencing a challenging time frame, it can also be as a small or even like a solid cycle, and people have to wait and observe. So as a final question, would you have some tips for this transformative period of the Greenwood Dragon, and how could people adapt to that change better?
Yeah, I have a favorite quote from Churchill. He said, if you are going through hell, keep walking. Because you will get out of the other side, that's for sure. So if you are going through a difficult period, the law of change will grant you that it will end.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be an end to this thing. And a good tip to start with, most cases, the problem is not what is happening. What is causing the pain, the suffering is not what is happening, but what you associate with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very, very distinct thing. Something bad is happening, but that's not in and of itself a bad thing. It becomes bad because then you think that if this happened, this means that, for example, the other person doesn't care about me. Or it means that I am no longer important. It means that I will remain alone for the rest of my life. These are the things which will cause pain itself, not the thing which happened.
The meanings people create out of situations. So would you say also the being an observer is very important, in a state of observation is probably very important for the rest of this year? And
I'm going again, top up a notch. I say awareness is very important, to know that these things happen, to know what you are attaching as a meaning to a certain thing. But again, this will not resolve itself. So it would be great if you could find way to work with it. It could be anything. I usually say you could go to a sorcerer or to a shaman if that's what's working for you. If not, then you can go to a psychologist or a theta healer or whatever works for you. But deal with it. Because we usually, with the difficult things, tend to go back to like a childlike state and say, if I don't look at it, then it will disappear. But that's not the case. And it has caused us enough trouble to say that, okay, it was enough. Now I will deal with it, whatever that is. I will go through it, I will experience it, and then let it go for good.
so, Etelka, could you share like a realistic example? What does it mean, like the full dealing part, like from start to finish? Because I feel like it's also being now used very popularly. Yeah, just let it go, and it's easy to say, but people don't know the process, how to let go of certain things, how to go through, how to. There's also like layers of those things. So how would you explain in more like a down to earth maybe examples how to really let it go?
I think most people are rushing this let it go part because they don't want to let it go, they want to get rid of. And that's a very different thing. You cannot get rid of yourself. That's the first point here. The second, if we are going into an example, that would be what we talked about in the beginning. So if you have bad habit, you have a reason to have that bad habit. You need to find the reason. You need to find a healthy way to put that into your life, and then you can let go, but not before that. Not before you've gone through, you understood, you had the awareness, and you had the action. And then when you are at the end of the cycle, then you can decide to let go of the old habit, of the bad habit in that sense. But we can take a different example. It could have been at some point in your life a good habit, but it's no longer serving you. Because a time has passed, you have changed, the circumstances have changed, but you have not updated these things. You have not updated how you deal with some things, and you now need to change and to adapt to what is. And that is, again, it was not a bad habit to start with, but it became a bad habit because it's no longer actual, it's no longer up to date.
Yeah, that's a brilliant example. I think. Well, that's one aspect of human life. It's a constant reinvention of of ourselves. So, and I think it's a beautiful way to finish. Is keeping this in mind, that the ultimate law of nature is change, and so are we ready to change? Are we ready to adapt? And that's completely up to us. So thank you, Etelka,
Just
very much.
one closing thought, because it came to me as you were speaking. I think if we are wise, then we don't wait until we need to change.
Mm-hmm.
We just proactively change the things which needs to be updated. And then there will be no forcing for change, because the change is happening consciously by choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say like the real change, which you are also grounded in, that you change and that becomes part of you. It has to be a conscious process.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Etelka, for this second episode, and I hope the listeners liked it, and I hope it maybe brings some light to this quite hot and intense Greenwood Dragon years. So thank you, and maybe sometime soon we also will think of some ideas for episode 3. So stay in tune, and bye bye.
Bye.